Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, members of Parliament, Luxembourg, birthplace of Robert Schuman, homeland of 3 presidents of the European Commission, and host country to EU institutions, amongst which part of the European Parliament. I'm very pleased to be able to take the floor today in front of you, the representatives of the people of Europe. Prior generations could hardly have imagined this moment. A Luxembourgish Prime Minister speaking on French soil in a former European town to the elected representatives of 27 European countries, united by EU treaties and inspired by shared dreams and ambitions. This session of Parliament, this building, my speech, all of it is the improbable result of history. But what seemed improbable has become reality. A continent torn apart by war and division has become a success story of peace and understanding. And Luxembourg is the proof of that. Throughout the last millennium, my country faced troubles and upheavals caused by other countries. But since the creation of the European Union, we have experienced an unprecedented period of peace and prosperity. This history is the shared history of all of the member states of the European Union, a treacherous cycle of war and ceasefire, of invasion and retreat, of destruction and reconstruction has finally been broken by human courage. Our predecessors, guided by common values, dreamt of a new reality, another destiny for this continent, another future for us and for our children. And all of us, we are their descendants. Peace has replaced war, prosperity has replaced stagnation, and liberal democracy has replaced totalitarian ideologies. Unfortunately, today we find ourselves once again at a turning point, facing forces which wish to reshape our world. Internationally, we are facing turbulent times, technological revolution, economic shifts, climate change, and migratory flows. It is up to us now to dream of a future for our children. And that does not happen by abandoning our values, but by renewing them. It is through these values, liberty, democracy, rule of law, that we will create Europe. This is what makes up Europe, our Europe. Our identity goes beyond simply geography. It is made up of our history, our culture, but particularly our shared values and convictions. It is a choice. It is more than a marriage of convenience. It is a union which is freely chosen.
In the midst of a changing international landscape, it is crucial that we recommit to those European values. For 80 years, Europe's success and way of life were built on international order of rules, treaties, and institutions. Today, that system is under pressure like never before. Too few defend it. Too many have lost faith in it. But Europe cannot give up on the rules-based system and international law. We must remain the voice of those values. On the second anniversary of the horrific terrorist attacks on Israel, on this 7th of October, 2 years ago, I would like to reiterate my call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. This is about humanity, about decency, about the kind of world we want to live in. And for the same reasons, a few weeks ago, in New York, Luxembourg recognized the State of Palestine. Because it is the right thing to do. Because the two-state solution remains the only viable way forward for lasting peace. And yes, my country continues to believe in peaceful cooperation between nations. That is also why we support Europe in making international agreements. That is why we are still striking trade deals. And that is why countries are still working hard to join our union. Because the values we stand for remain attractive. The merit-based process is set up precisely to ensure that countries follow those rules. And they follow the values of the rule of law, accountability, and democratic governance. But enlargement is today also a question of strategic interests. Our decisions must also consider our own geopolitical objectives, because other powers are competing for influence in those regions. And within candidate countries, there are fierce struggles too, between those who want to move closer to Europe and those who do not. And the recent elections in Moldova show just that. Keeping those countries in an eternal waiting room will push them away from Europe. That is why we need to revive hope and show that accession to the EU is realistic and close. In that spirit, let us set closer and clearer timelines. For instance, it is time to close negotiations and decide on Montenegro's accession next year. In this world, our values also need to be backed up by a credible deterrent. If we cannot deter others, they will dictate their terms and values to us. It is a matter of sovereignty and freedom to make our own choices. That is why Luxembourg will support Ukraine until there is a just and lasting peace. Because a sovereign and safe Ukraine means a sovereign and safe Europe. On European defence, the Commission's proposals are welcome. Raising more funds, scaling up joint procurement and training, building an industrial base. They will strengthen our common defence. We should make full use of our diversity and foster specialisation. If we build on our respective strengths, the sum of our efforts can be much bigger. For instance, my country's world-leading expertise in secure satellite systems can be a contribution that benefits the security of Europe as a whole by being, for instance, part of the defence space shield. That's also why we support the European IRIS² project. This will be a key element of a truly European defence. Closer to home, we also need to guard against those who challenge our values. A democracy can only work on the basis of trust, and such trust is earned through concrete action and progress. I believe that democracies can deliver. Around the world they have delivered, and we need to make sure that they can continue to deliver. That is central to their survival. We, the Council, as much as this Parliament and the Commission, need to deliver. And we need to deliver quickly for citizens across Europe, in small and large member states alike. With increasingly fierce international competition, we need to be ready to rethink our decision-making processes. We should revisit the idea of a Europe of concentric circuits, with a smaller core group of member states that would be more integrated, always allowing others to join this core group when they wish to do so. We have no time to lose on dealing with the challenges our citizens and our countries face today. We need bold ideas and bold actions to maintain Europe's role on the world stage. And let me highlight a few more areas in which quick and tangible progress is urgent. Eine florierende Wirtschaft.
A flourishing economy remains the basis of our well-being and our social system. Therefore, it is important that we boost our economy and create jobs. This must remain a priority. We do not lack in analysis. The Letter report is very clear. The Draghi report is clear. Europe needs to remove bureaucracy. The implementation sometimes lasts too long. The omnibus proposals are an important first step, but we are missing the necessary urgency and the right approach. We need to act quickly and comprehensively. There are more steps that need to be taken. By the end of the year, we need a clearly defined time frame with milestones, similarly to the Single European Act and the introduction of the euro. What we need is a very clear signal to ourselves and to the rest of the world that there's a real shift in Europe. And two key aspects of that are real progress in the single market and also in the savings and investment union. The single market is the motor that drives the European economy, whether it's a harbour in Rotterdam or Antwerp, or the automotive sector in Central Europe, finance sector in Luxembourg. European economy flourishes where it can act seamlessly across borders. We need to focus on removing technical obstacles. They might seem benign, but they can cause real problems for everyday life. For example, territorial supply constraints. Every year, that brings an extra cost of 14 billion euros. Or the fact that we have different consumer protection regulations that particularly affects our small and medium-sized companies that have to run supply chains across borders. So these types of steps we need to take that can only be done through European cooperation between member states, but also between Parliament and Council. Strengthening the single market needs to go hand in hand with tangible steps forward in the savings and investment union. Here we need an action plan with targets to help make investment in Europe more attractive. So this can be done through a massive simplification of level 2 and 3 tax, by reducing national gold plating, by having a better management of our existing investment products, particularly pension products, by simplifying access to investment opportunities, and to enable securitization for all. With these and other measures, we can help revive Europe as a place for business. We can create growth and jobs, prosperity and tax revenue. And with all of this, we can tackle the challenges we face from security, defence, social policies, climate change, digitalisation. The single market needs to remain open. This is a historic achievement with a Luxembourgish name, Schengen. As well as economic trade, Schengen is a clear testament to the solidarity and tolerance of European citizens. It's an expression of peace in Europe. Wars can shift borders, but the lack of borders is a clear sign of lasting peace. If we have a long-term return to border controls, this would not just be negative for our economy, but it would be a step backwards for the whole of the European project and the values that it embodies. It is therefore in our common interest to find a way to permanently remove these internal border controls. It might be understandable in some cases to have temporary border controls, but this is not a long-term solution. Schengen is made up of three equally important components: free movement within the EU, police cooperation, and common controls at our external borders. Having real controls over irregular migration can only really be ensured at our external borders. We need to have a policy that brings the heart and the mind together. The right to asylum must be safeguarded. It is a non-negotiable aspect of our common humanity. In individual countries in Europe, regular migration is needed for economic development. What we need is a quick and full implementation of the Asylum and Migration Pact in our member states. What we need is a political action plan so that we can slowly phase out internal border controls. With all of these actions, we can help strengthen our values. We can strengthen these freedoms, freedom of movement in Schengen, economic freedom in the single market, ideological freedom as part of our democracy. These are our strengths. In a world where a lot of people wish to build walls once again, the EU stands for openness, solidarity, and cooperation. These are the historical lessons we have learnt through our union, and it is our strategic answer to the challenges of the future. Some of these challenges remind us that actually none of what we've achieved can be taken for granted, and other challenges we're seeing for the first time in our generation. But the solutions come from a union of two strengths which have carried us this far: our values and our unity. That is the real meaning of European success. A country alone, no matter which country, cannot overcome these challenges, whereas no challenge cannot be overcome if we work together. This is a responsibility that falls on all of us: Council, Parliament, Commission. It is a heavy responsibility, yes, but it is also encouraging, because it means that we are the masters of our own destiny. A quarter of a century has passed in this new millennium, and we need to ensure that now is the time of Europe, a time of imagination, where we take on the ambition of previous generations, a time of courage, where we dare to open a new chapter in our common history, a time of determination, where we use our common values to benefit our citizens. Let's do it, and do it now. We have no time to lose. Long live Europe.
Europe. Lang lebe Europa. Vive Europa. Merci.